Sunday the 15th of January. It was Racing 92 versus Harlequins, Finn Russell versus Marcus Smith, a game that promised so much running rugby and was certainly about to live up to its hype. There were so many brilliant team and individual moments across this game, so today I thought we'd look back at what was perhaps the best game of this year's Champions Cup so far. There's no doubt that this game was an absolute cracker, and despite a certain referee that I think soured the result that I will say no more on, it was certainly an entertaining watch. Straight from the kickoff we saw that both sides wanted to run the ball, and it wasn't long before we got to see the first try of the game. Joe Marler caused the first break in play by giving away a penalty for an off the ball tackle. I think he had a brilliant game, but this was a very silly way to start it. Finn Russell chooses to kick to touch to capitalise on Marler's indiscipline and gain Racing a line-out just inside the Quins 22. The line-out doesn't quite go to plan, however, as Quins send up Luke Wallace to compete in the air, applying pressure and forcing Racing to bat it backwards towards their own line. Legarrec picks the ball up and does a very good salvage job, beating Marler as the first defender before being taken down by Herb. He does well to stay on his feet long enough so that he can buy his forwards enough time to get around the corner to set for the next phase. This single pod of forwards pulls three Quins defenders into the tackle, Dombrandt, Marler and Levis, putting them all on the floor and out of the game. Legarrec sees that there's three Quins defenders on the floor compared to only one Racing man, and cleverly steps out to stand at first receiver. Woki acts now as scrum half and feeds the ball out to Legarrec, whose line takes a slight outwards angle to draw in Jack Walker from his position at guard, also committing Will Evans. If we then take a look back, we can see that Racing's left winger Emoff has come in from his flank looking for work, and is running a ghost line from behind the breakdown. This line is aiming at the space next to the breakdown where Walker was, and Legarrec simply tips the ball inside for the line break. Walker should probably have remained in his position at guard and trusted Evans to have made the tackle outside him, which would have cut off the option for Emoff to run that line. However, Walker does very low to turn around and make the tackle, assisted by Wilco Lowe, but Emoff's offload to Woki allows Racing to go wide. The ball, however, goes loose and ends up in the hands of Racing fullback Jalant, who does very well to beat his opposite number Nick David by throwing a dummy pass to his wing. It looks like he could easily have made the line himself, but doesn't want to risk it with Marchant's hips turned in for the tackle, so he tips it inside to Fiku, who dots down instead. The option he chose was probably riskier than taking it himself, because he gave the ball a little bit too early and Marchant was nearly able to turn around and make the tackle, but it doesn't really matter because Fiku scored anyway. Even though there was a little loose ball, it was still a nicely worked try as they reacted to their set piece going wrong and adapting their strike play. Finn Russell converted to put the home side 7 points up and taking control of the game within the first 5 minutes. During the next 30 minutes or so of play, we see winger Aaron Morris have a try disallowed on his return from injury after being deemed to have not have grounded the ball. In this time, Marcus Smith also kicked a penalty to narrow the home side's advantage to just 4 points. This was all building up to what became Racing's second try, this time in the 34th minute, again coming from a penalty and a subsequent line-out. Camille Schatz's throw isn't under as much pressure this time, which allows him to feed it easily back to Legarrec at 9. Legarrec commits Walker at the tail of the line-out before shipping the ball onto Siley on a hard line. Notice the angle of his line, it's cut back inwards towards the touch line, aiming at the Harlequins pack that is still recovering from the line-out. Because of his line and the new breakdown that's set here, the Quins forwards are struggling to get around the corner, and just look at the numbers that Racing have on their feet. There are 6 players plus 2 more that are coming around the corner against 3 Harlequins defenders. Will Evans notices this and thinks that his best option for shutting down the attack will be to go for an interception. With Evans shooting out the line, Legarrec picks the simple short line option into Kamakamaka, who exploits the space that Evans has left by jumping out the line and goes over to score Racing's second. This was a very well worked power play from the French side, straight off the training park and executed to perfection. Quins had almost no chance at dealing with it. Russell again got the opportunity to convert and kicked another 2 points to give the home side a convincing 14-3 lead. The French side started the second half as they left off in the first. A high kick from Russell on the restart sees Dombrandt lose the aerial battle to Taufi Fanua, who bats the ball back towards his own line. The ball comes down to Palu, who carries it in, assisted by Shat and Niakanye. The Quins' defence is slower to set as they were already halfway through setting for a kick exit after the kickoff, expecting to have regained the ball. Legarrec provides quick ball from the base of the ruck, missing the pod and firing straight out the back to Fiku, who is acting as fly half while Russell is still coming back from the backfield. He sees a huge gap in the midfield, so he moves the ball out to his number 8 Baudon so that he can exploit the space. Nick David fires upwards to cut off the pass to Saili, but in doing so makes a defensive error and opens up the space which Baudon reacts to and exploits. With Nick David now no longer an issue, Baudon has a 3-on-1 against Marcus Smith, with Siley and Emoff queuing up outside of him. From there, it's a simple matter of drawing Smith in, making him commit to the tackle and then moving the ball on to Siley to score. This was Racing's third and final try of the game, and it came from a mixture of quick ball and great exploitation of space from the home side, but also involved some key defensive errors from Quins. Russell kicked a solid conversion to give the home side a commanding 21-3 lead. They may be down, but we all know that Quins are capable of a damn good comeback, and this game was no different. Harlequins were awarded a penalty courtesy of a deliberate knock-on from Emoff, and with an 18-point disadvantage, they were pressured into kicking towards the corner. Smith's kick gave the visitors a line out just 5 metres out, and Levis took Walker's throw uncontested before Quinn set a brilliant driving maul that sent Racing straight back over their try line. For a second time in the match, however, Quins are held up over the line, with Dombrandt just failing to dot the ball down at the base of the maul. The try is disallowed, but Quins are lucky enough to have a second crack after Racing were penalised for an early drive at the maul. Of course, Quins choose to go to the corner again, and Smith drills it straight into the 5 metre line, setting up another line out for Quins. The ball goes to Levis again, and Quins come down for another very strong maul setup. They attack the maul around the right hand side, with Wilco Low forming the pivot, allowing Wallace and Walker to follow through, with Ernie Herbst and Evans then backing them up. The setup continues to move forward, but is stopped very well by what was left of the Racing pack just before the line. Danny Kerr notices the Racing forwards are still recovering from the set piece and uses this opportunity to pull out what's probably his signature move. He throws a dummy to Wilco Low on his outside before attacking back on the inside to dot down on the line just next to the breakdown. It may not have been the typical Quins open and flowing play that we'd come to see later in the match, but it goes to show that a strong set piece forms the bedrock of the game. Smith knocked over 2 more points, bringing the visitors' total up to 10 and reducing their deficit to 11. Now we're getting to the flashy stuff for Quins. We once again start from the set piece, this time with the scrum in midfield at around the 49-minute mark. The scrum had been a great battle throughout the whole game, but Marler and Lowe had been doing a very good job to give the visitors a slight advantage. Kerr retrieves the ball from beneath Dombrandt's feet and moves the ball quickly to Smith at first receiver outside of him. Smith has Esterhazen running a hard line on his outside, which is set up to be the obvious strike play from the set piece. However, Smith pulls out this brilliant move, cutting across the front of Esterhazen's line and holding the ball out in his left hand for a dummy switch. LeGarrette had come flying out from behind the scrum to mark Smith, and the dummy causes a slight hesitation as his eyes move towards Esterhazen. It's only for a split second, but it's yet another thing that Smith does so well to buy himself time as he pulls the strings of play and waits for opportunities to open up. The dummy switch, followed by Smith changing the angle of his line, forces the defenders to turn their shoulders outwards towards the touchline as they drift. Smith sees this and throws another dummy, this time to Marchant on his outside, which further commits Fiku at 13, and now Smith simply has to straighten his line to attack the space between the two centres. He now only has Gillant to beat, and he simply has to bide his time and wait for the fullback to bite before moving the ball onto Caden Murley, who's providing a support line on the wing. It still takes some scoring from 20 metres out for Murley. He puts his foot down and he noticed Siley coming back on his inside. With Siley being at pace and fully committed, Murley simply has to take a step to his inside to miss him, and he crosses the white line for his first try of the match. We should also credit Marchant here, who had the awareness to hold his line behind Murley so that he couldn't be penalised for obstructing Siley's cover tackle attempt. This was a brilliant team try scored by the Quins backline, orchestrated by Smith, who added 2 points, and then finished by Murley. Quins were right back in the game. About 15 minutes passed since Murley's try, and it consisted of both sides trying to take some form of control, resulting in a bit of a stalemate between the two teams. Finn Russell kicked a penalty at around the 54-minute mark, but that's about all that's worthy of note throughout this period. The next Quins try may not have been scored directly from the scrum, but it was initiated from the set piece inside Quins' own 22, perhaps making it even more brilliant. Kerr again gathers it from the base of the scrum and moves it onto Smith, who has this time situated himself on the blind side, perhaps trying to make the defence think about a clearance kick from his 22. Smith produces yet another moment of magic as he runs an outward line to start to draw Saili out towards the touchline and open up a gap. He then pulls out his signature goose step, which is yet another weapon in his arsenal that allows him to buy time to make his decisions. As he is in mid-air, defenders are anticipating his next move before a sudden burst of movement makes it tough for defenders to react before he breaks the line. In this case, it's very simple. He draws Siley closer and closer to the touchline with his outwards run before deciding to burst back inside and attack the gap that he's opened up. He makes it from the 22 to the halfway line before shipping it onto Murley, who accelerates into the space in front of him. Emoff is in the backfield and takes Murley down, but the ball is recycled quickly, which allows Kerr to throw a sweet out the back pass into Smith, who has worked hard to get back up with play. Smith notices that there's space wide and moves it on to replacement lock George Hammond, who shows that forwards can use their feet by spotting space in behind and putting a brilliant grubber through. Oscar Beard was agonisingly close to picking this up and scoring in the corner, but the kick dribbled out on the 5 and served as a brilliant touch finder instead. Racing then have a line out in their own 5-metre line, which they have to retain if they want to exit their red zone. They choose to go for an overthrow, a risky tactic but one that teams use on their own 5-metre line because they're only 5 metres back as opposed to the defenders who are 10. However, Jack Walker is marking on the tail and makes a brilliant read to shoot out a contest, plucking the ball out of the air in spectacular fashion. From here, Quins quickly switch to attack, and Andre Esterhazen runs an inwards line towards the breakdown, taking both Fiku and Saili out the game. With the Racing forwards still folding round the corner from the line out and 2 centres now out the game, this gives Quins more space to work with on the right hand side. Kerr launches it wide to Marchant, who commits his man and then passes it to Murley, who then goes over to score his second try in the same place as his first. It was another brilliant end-to-end try, something that we've come to expect from the way that Harlequins play, the entire team involved and backing their excellent handling abilities. After this, Finn Russell kicked another penalty before Quins found more field position and started to apply some pressure. The momentum was firmly with the away team and they were looking to turn the scoreboard around in the final few minutes. Quins once again found themselves in Racing's red zone, applying pressure with the scrum on the 5-metre line. Dombrandt picks it up from the base of a dominant scrum and moves it on to Kerr, who is already moving, a tactic commonly used to quickly add another player to the backline. Esterhazen is once again used running hard on a short line and, like we saw earlier, angled back in towards the set piece. This took both of Racing's centres out of the game as they have to commit to Esterhazen because it's simply too risky not to in case he gets the ball. He is a huge powerful runner that poses such an attacking threat and he is so hard to stop from 5 metres out, which is why they have to commit numbers to him early. Kerr's pass was flat across the face of Esterhazen, aiming at Marchant, who was running on the second line for a 1v1 against Russell. Russell knows that Marchant is likely to win this battle, so attempts to shut the ball down even though there's no way he can do it legally. Tips of his fingers on his right hand make contact with the ball, knocking it forward from its path and thus causing clear deliberate knock-on, preventing what was going to be an almost certain try. If Marchant takes this, he's under the sticks, which is why a penalty try was awarded and a yellow card shown to Finn Russell, meaning that Racing were to see the rest of the game out with 12 men. It all went wrong for Quins after that. Some dodgy refereeing gave Nolan Lagarek a shot at goal, and some further questionable decisions prevented Quins from getting the ball back before it was cleared into touch to seal the victory for a 12-man Racing team. It was, without a doubt, a brilliant game and certainly lived up to the anticipation of all of those of us watching. Despite losing, Marcus Smith showed Finn Russell who's boss by putting on an excellent display on his return from injury, being awarded man of the match by the French commentary team. It was a tough loss for Quins, who came away with 2 bonus points and now have to get a bonus point win next weekend against the Chelsea Sharks to qualify for the round of 16. So there you have it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I've been wanting to try my hand at this for a while now, so I thought now was as good a time as any to give it a go. If you enjoyed the video, then a like would be very much appreciated, and I'd highly recommend going over to the channel to subscribe and checking out more of my content, such as my Team of the Year for 2022 or my review of England's Autumn Nation series. But for now, guys, I hope you have a nice day, I hope you stay safe, and most importantly, enjoy your rugby.